الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين أما بعد. It's the 8th night of Muharram. Inshallah, we are strong in our commitment to Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. There are 2 days left to the day of Ashura. And every night you're building on your commitment. And every night you're developing a good habit. It's a habit of saying salam to Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. Inshallah, I hope we will keep up this habit even after the 10 nights of Muharram. But once again tonight, join me in sending our salams to Aba Abdullah al-Hussein as we begin learning and being inspired from him tonight. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah wa ala al-arwah allati hallat bifina'ik alayka minni salamullah أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. I know that they will ask me one more time to ask you to move as much forward as you can because we are filling up at the back and I see a lot of space in front. So may Allah have mercy upon you as you rise for the qa'im min Ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala. And please move as much forward as you can. Jazakumullah. One of the distractions that we come across in our lives that hampers our growth is something called shahwa. And shahwa is translated in English as desire, sometimes as lust, a liking for something, an attachment to something, an obsession for something, an inclination towards something. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ. Adorned for people is the love of certain desires. The first one that God mentions is women. Clearly, men and women both have an attraction towards each other. However, because this attraction is more apparent in a man, God points out women as an object of desire. وَالْبَنِينَ, and children, people like to have the continuation to their progeny. وَالْقَنَاطِرِ الْمُقَنْطَرَةِ مِنَ الذَّهَبِ وَالْفِضَّةِ, and to accumulate and stockpile gold and silver. And even today, people like to wear gold to show that gold off. وَالْخَيْلِ الْمُسَوَّمَةِ, and a mount, a horse in those days, a car in today's society, to have a nice ride. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالْأَنْعَامِ وَالْحَرْثِ, and to have cattle and to have farmlands. And even today everybody talks about having assets. Do you have secondary assets with you? People like to have certain assets. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there is no problem per se in having shahwa. God has given it to you. It serves a purpose. It is productive as long as you realize God says, ذَلِكَ مَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. This is for the provision of the life of this world. Meaning you should realize these things will one day separate from you, or you will separate from it. Therefore, don't obsess about it. Don't get overly attached to it. Don't become extreme in your drive towards these things. And don't at any cost make it the goal of your life, because one day you will separate from it. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاللَّهُ عِنْدَهُ حُسْنُ الْمَآبِ. And with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a good destination. Therefore our religion teaches us that a man ought to control his shahwa. A Muslim ought to control his shahwa, using his intellect to manage it, to make sure it doesn't go out of moderation. Because if you don't control your shahwa, it becomes destructive for your faith, it becomes destructive for your spirituality, it becomes destructive for your society, it becomes destructive for your dunya, destructive for your akhirah. The first Imam, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi afdalu salati was salam, he says, كم من شهوة ساعة أورثت حزنا طويلا. How often it happens that a desire of a moment brings about sorrow for a long period of time. Sometimes in the moment you give in to your desire because you weren't thinking very smart, you put yourself in a position, you made a mistake, now until the end of your life you can't change that. In another hadith he says, أحجروا الشهوات فإنها تقودكم إلى ركوب الذنوب والتهجم على سيئات. Avoid having a lot of desire. Don't pay a lot of attention to it, because slowly it will drive you towards committing sins and indulging in a lot of sins. Sometimes we may not engage in the actions which are wrong, but we fantasize about it. We think about it. We imagine it. We run through that scenery over and over and over again. We desire it so much that one day it brings us very close to committing a sin. There was a lady who was famous for being a vegetarian, and she used to blog about it, and everybody used to follow her blog. True story. Then one day she came online and she blogged and she said, I'm no longer a vegetarian. I now do eat meat. And the online community, especially the vegetarian community, was shocked. And they thought of it as a betrayal. And they asked her, why did you do this? And she said that for every day I didn't eat meat, day and night I thought about eating meat. Now that I eat a little bit of it, right, I no longer fantasize so much about it. We'll see today, Islam teaches us that we should fulfill our desires in the halal way. That is one of the best ways of controlling it. So Islam teaches us that we ought to control our shahwa. Don't allow it to get out of hand. And you should control your shahwa with something called haya. Haya is translated into English to mean modesty. In gender interaction, the word we use for it is chastity. When you have a sense of embarrassment, when you have a sense of uncomfortableness, when you are with a member of the opposite gender. That's called haya. The Quran uses the word haya. وَجَاءَتْ إِحْدَاهُمَا تَمْشِي عَلَى اسْتِحْيَاءٍ. One of the daughters of Jethro, Shu'aib, came towards Prophet Musa after Prophet Musa had helped them to get water for their cattle. She came to him, the Quran says, and it makes a point of it, تَمْشِي عَلَى اسْتِحْيَاءٍ. She was walking with a lot of haya'a. Meaning what? Meaning she didn't come very close to him. She walked slowly towards him. She was in a corner, for example, not right in front of him. Haya. Normally when we think about the word haya, we associate it to the public domain. You shouldn't do certain things in public. It's embarrassing to do that in front of people. If somebody does it in front of people, you say to the person, do you not have haya that you're doing this in public? Islam gives us a different definition of haya. Islam says haya is how much you value yourself, how much dignity you give to yourself. That sometimes you come across a certain action, you don't do it because people are watching you, you don't do it because you're embarrassed in front of yourself. And you're embarrassed in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is haya. For example, in one hadith, the Imam, the seventh Holy Imam, he says to one of his companions, he says, فَاسْتَحْيُوا مِنَ اللَّهِ فِي سَرَائِرِكُمْ كَمَا تَسْتَحْيُونَ مِنَ النَّاسِ فِي عَلَانِيَتِكُمْ. Then have embarrassment in the presence of God when you are in private, the way you are embarrassed in the presence of people when you are in public. Somebody came to the Holy Prophet and said, Ya Rasulullah, I want you to advise me. The Prophet of Allah said, Istahi min Allah, o ma fi ma'nahu. Have embarrassment in the presence of God the way you are embarrassed and you have modesty in the presence of someone who has hayba. Somebody who is respectable. Somebody who is honorable. Sometimes you will notice that even the sisters who don't wear hijab, when they come in front of an alim, when they come in front of a sheikh, they will put on the hijab out of haya, correct? The Prophet says that type of haya that you have in the presence of an elder in your community, have that haya in the presence of Allah. The first Holy Imam says, مَنْ كَرُمَتْ عَلَيْهِ نَفْسُهُ لَمْ يُهِنْهَا بِالشَّهَوَاتِ. Whoever values himself, has a sense of esteem for himself, he will never disgrace himself with what? With shahwa, with unbridled desire. Let me give you an example of this. One of our young brothers, he says that one day he decided to go out with someone at school. A girl that everybody wanted to go out with. And they went to a point in their relationship where they were ready to move to the next level. Say to get to first base. And he said, I was this close. He's a dignified person, an honorable person. He says, I was this close. But I normally carry with me a religious memorabilia or a religious symbol with me. And at that moment, every thought of mine went to that religious symbol. And I couldn't bring myself to it every moment, thinking of how embarrassing it was to do that. And because he had haya, God helped him. Because he was embarrassed, he thought it wasn't dignified for him, God helped him. He says, for no reason, a friend of mine called. And he had nothing to tell me, but he just called. I picked up the phone, I said, I need to go, and I booked it out of there. That's called haya. Right? Now, tonight and tomorrow night, I want to talk about certain expressions of haya which are taught in Islam. And tonight I want to talk about haya in our dressing. And haya in our dressing in Arabic is known as hijab. Okay? So tonight I'd like to focus our discussion on hijab. According to the teachings of Islam, a lady is expected to cover herself, to cover her entire body, with the exception of her face and her hands up to her wrists. A majority of the scholars also tell us that she should cover her feet as well. Her dressing should not be revealing. Her dressing should not be tight. Her dressing should not show the shape of her body. Her dressing should not be transparent. Her dressing should not attract a member of the opposite gender. How long are you going to repeat the need for women's dressing? It's also a very popular objection nowadays, not only when it comes to hijab, but also when it comes to other parts of Islam as well. So I think it's important to respond to this objection. Firstly, I understand where this sensitivity comes from. Let me explain where this sensitivity comes from. One, the sensitivity comes when we have certain brothers who are not mindful of their own duties. They don't pray, they don't fast. They will chit-chat with members of the opposite gender. They are not observant of the ahkam of Islam. But when it comes to their wives and their daughters and their sisters and their nieces who aren't wearing hijab, they become so possessive. And they repeat it over and over and over again as if that is the only hukm in Islam. And that's not right. Because people can see through the hypocrisy of that. We need to practice our faith and then preach it to others. Secondly, the sentiment also comes because sometimes when we see a lady who's not wearing hijab, unfortunately we say she is an immodest lady. That lady has immodest intentions. That's why she's not wearing proper hijab. And I don't think that's right. We don't know the intentions behind somebody's action. It could be they're not wearing hijab because of fear, they're not wearing hijab because of Islamophobia, they're not wearing hijab because of peer pressure, they're not wearing hijab because it wasn't emphasized in their culture or in their family. You cannot jump to the conclusion that if she doesn't wear hijab, then she has immodest intentions. In certain cultures, before Islam came to them or before Islam was revived in those cultures, the women dressed modestly even though they didn't wear a headscarf. And they were very modest women. Their levels of modesty were sometimes much higher than what we see in today's society. Thirdly, sometimes we're told that we focus more, and that's where the sensitivity comes from, we focus more on the hijab of women and we don't talk about the hijab of men. And it's equally important for us to talk about the hijab of men as well. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first addresses the men and then He addresses the women. We'll see today we both have a mutual responsibility. And yes, even men have to observe a modest dressing. Some of our brothers, when they go to the gym, and if members of the opposite gender are there, they like to wear something that's sleeveless. If they go to the gymnasium and say they've got some biceps, then they want to wear something that's sleeveless. If they have a six-pack, then they want to wear something that's tight. No, my brothers, that's not hijab. If you're attracting attention of members of the opposite gender and you know that is happening, then that is not hijab. And we need to point that out as well. But having said that, now let me make a couple of points. Okay? Firstly, these messages that we share with you are not our personal opinions. Scholars like myself and my colleagues, we don't sit down as a bunch of men and decide that this is how we want women to dress. When we convey this to you, what we are doing is conveying to you the hukm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we're presenting it to you. And we have a duty to do that. We have a duty to do something called amra bil ma'ruf, to enjoin goodness and to do nahya anil munkar, to discourage that which we think is wrong, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us not to do. Right? In fact, men have a duty towards women, women have a duty towards men. Right? But these opinions are not our personal opinions, one. Secondly, I also want our sisters to appreciate the way men sometimes don't understand them, that it also goes the other way as well. Whenever somebody comes into Islam, if it's a sister, one of the most difficult things to explain is the concept of haya and hijab, sometimes. And sometimes I find it difficult to explain to the sisters because they say, we don't get it. They come to the masjid, they're learning about Islam. Why do men and women sit separately? The men who come get it, the women don't get it. Right? And what I want to point out to our sisters is that men do think differently. What you think is very innocent, men will interpret it very differently. Okay? The way men look at you is not the way you look at men. And I know this is difficult because you don't think that way, but men do think that way. Sometimes a sister goes up to a brother and she said something very innocent. She said, Salamun alaykum. And the young brother who heard her heard something very different. He's on a different cloud altogether. Right? It's important for us to understand these differences. Okay? I remember reading in the news once that in high school, one of the teachers had asked some of the girls closer towards summer and told them that they were not dressed appropriately. They need to cover themselves a little more. So these girls were upset about it. And the next day there was a protest at the school. And girls joined in the protest and boys joined in the protest, some of them, and they said, teachers should not tell girls how to dress. And all the teachers were trying to say is when you dress in this manner, we see that the boys in the class, they're not able to pay attention. They're distracted. And it's not something you can remove from their programming. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to a certain extent has created them. Right? They can try to put their gaze down, they can try to control their view, they can try to control their sight, but you have to help them as well. Now, one of the common responses to that is to say, but that's not my problem. That's his problem. He needs to go fix himself. He shouldn't tell me how to dress. The Quran says no. It's our problem. The believing men and women have to help each other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah An-Nur, first, وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَن يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ ذَلِكَ أَزْكَى لَهُمْ. First, tell the believing men they have a duty. Their duty is to cast down their gaze. Their duty is to protect their decency. That is purer for them. And then the Quran says, وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنَاتِ أَن يَغْضُضْنَ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِنَّ وَيَحْفَظْنَ فُرُوجَهُنَّ وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنَّ إِلَّا مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا وَلْيَضْرِبْنَ بِخُمُرِهِنَّ عَلَى جُيُوبِهِنَّ. And tell the believing women that this duty to create a peaceful society, a productive society, is a mutual responsibility. Men have a duty, women have a duty. We help each other. They should lower their gaze, they should protect their decency, they should not make apparent their beauty except that which is naturally apparent, and they should take their khimar. Khimar in the Arabic language refers to a headscarf. Back in the time of the Holy Prophet, even before the advent of Islam, the women of Arabia used to wear a headscarf. And they used to tie it behind their ears and put it right behind, close it behind their necks. And this part of the neck and the chest would sometimes remain open. In this verse, God says they should take that headscarf, وَلْيَضْرِبْنَ بِخُمُرِهِنَّ عَلَى جُيُوبِهِنَّ. Cover the neck, cover the chest as well. So inshallah, for the rest of tonight's discussion, what I would like to do is to look at the philosophy of hijab. And why has hijab been instituted within Islam? Now here I first need the attention of the educators, the mentors, the teachers, the parents. We need to develop more sophisticated reasons for convincing our children to wear hijab. In a world of WhatsApp and a world of YouTube and a world of Facebook, sometimes we try to share very simple reasons and those don't work. And sometimes they are detrimental to the cause. It may work in our generation, doesn't work in the next generation. There's a meme out there that was there a while ago. A while ago, there's a meme out there, an image, where they showed a lollipop or a candy. And the candy was without the cover, the wrapping. And there were a lot of flies around it. And this was the caption on there, that a lady without hijab is like, that's not a good reason. That's not a dignified reason. That kind of reasoning doesn't convince the next generation. In fact, it puts them off. So we need to develop more sophisticated reasoning. Tonight, inshallah, in the time that's left, I would like to look at 3 reasons if you recite the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The first reason for instituting hijab is because Islam is opposed to a culture of objectifying women's bodies. To objectify something means to use it as a tool, to use it for a purpose. For example, you think of a car as an object because it helps you to get from point A to point B. You think of a cell phone as an object because it helps you to talk to another person. When you objectify something, to some extent you demean it. You lower it. You don't give it human dignity. Our claim is that our society objectifies women. They use women's bodies to sell products, from cars to shaving sticks. They use women's bodies to sell services. They even use women's bodies to sell news. Don't you see today on the news, any channel, a woman has to have a particular body type and wear particular clothes before she can become a news anchor? They use women's bodies to sell entertainment, to sell sports. Why else does the NFL and the NBA need cheerleaders who are dressed in that manner? Using their bodies to sell sports. Now, somebody could say, what does that matter? And what difference does it make? So the American Psychology Association, they say the problem with that is that Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. They say that what we have found, therefore, in today's society is that women no longer start to see their body as a part of themselves, as a part of their own dignity and value. They say women now start to see their own bodies as, I'm sorry to use these terms, but for tonight I will have to use these terms so that the message is very clear. Now they are beginning to see their bodies as sexual objects. What's the problem with that? The American Psychology Association says when you have a culture of objectifying women's bodies, it creates many mental health problems. Number one, you start seeing an increase in eating disorders. An increase in young girls who are going on extreme diets because they have to meet a particular standard that is unachievable for them. The research shows that 95% of people who have eating disorders are women and girls between the age of 12 and 25. 2, it creates a sense of low self-esteem. Where a young girl who's smart, who's sharp, who's intelligent, who's got so many achievements, who's got a great character, still has a very low esteem of herself because her body doesn't meet a particular standard. And who exploits that? The cosmetics industry exploits that. 3, it also leads to an increase in depression. And so the American Psychology Association says that unhealthy train of thought can develop into recurring problems such as eating disorders, low self-esteem, and depression. Hijab has been instituted as a symbol of resistance against a culture that objectifies women's bodies. 1. 2, hijab gives honor and dignity to a woman. It gives izzah and karamah to a woman. When a lady wears hijab, her society treats her differently. Clothing can have that impact upon people. And when a lady doesn't dress modestly, doesn't wear hijab, society again treats her very differently. And I'm not saying that that is right, but that is the reality of society. During the time of the Holy Prophet, some of you may not have known that before the advent of Islam, like I told you, women used to wear hijab, but not all women. The noble and free women used to wear hijab. The slave maids did not wear hijab, did not wear the khimar, did not cover their heads. So if a lady came out and her head was covered, noble and free woman. I'm just giving you historical context because I want to share a verse with you. Please don't take that historical context and apply it today. Okay? So if a lady comes out, noble and free woman. If she comes out without a headscarf, slave maid. Unfortunately, one of the things that became prevalent back then is if she came out with a covering, nobody hassled her. If she came out without a covering, she was known as a slave maid. Sometimes they used to hassle her. Even if a lady doesn't come out with hijab, no man has the right to hassle her. It doesn't justify approaching her with certain interactions. Now look at this verse of the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhan nabi, O Prophet of God, قُلْ لِأَزْوَاجِكَ, tell your wives, وَبَنَاتِكَ, and your daughters, وَنِسَاءِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and the women of the believers, يُدْنِينَ عَلَيْهِنَّ مِنْ جَلَابِيبِهِنَّ, they should take their jilbab and close it and tie it close to them. What is jilbab? Jilbab in the Arabic language could refer to one of three things. It either refers to a headscarf that is so long that it covers the top of the body. 2, it refers to a headscarf that just covers the head, the hair, and up to the neck. 3, it refers to a top, a shirt, a tunic that is very wide. Regardless of which interpretation of jilbab you take, one thing that is common and clear is that the physical covering is a part of Islam. It's a part of the Quran. It's not a cultural requirement, it's a religious requirement. Now the question is why? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ذَلِكَ أَدْنَى أَن يُعْرَفْنَ فَلَا يُؤْذَيْنَ. If they do that, they will be known and they will not be hassled. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants that for the believing women. Now of course it doesn't mean that just because a woman puts on the hijab, a man dresses modestly, that they are not going to get hassled. You also have to carry with you the spirit of hijab as well. But you will find when you wear hijab, men and women, they react very differently around you. They act very differently around you. One of the sisters in our community in Vancouver, she says, I noticed that at a very young age, or even before I completed high school, I noticed that when I come in the presence of my friends, they act very differently, even amongst themselves. Hijab gives izzah. It creates a different environment. And she says, when I wasn't there, they would act very differently. When I am there, they don't curse. They don't tell dirty jokes. If I'm not there, it's a very different story. She says, I realized it one day because I was behind my locker. And they didn't know I was there. And I got to hear the things they would say to each other. And then I closed the locker and they saw me, and the moment they saw me, they apologized. They said, I'm sorry, we didn't realize you were there. 2, hijab gives izzah and karama, honor and dignity. And it creates a different environment. Number 3, you'll find that when you dress modestly, people appreciate you for your achievements, for your character, for who you are, for your intelligence, for your personality. And if you don't dress modestly, even if you have character, personality, intelligence, sometimes there are some people who are not going to appreciate you for that. They'll only appreciate you for your physical appearance, how much makeup you've been able to put, what clothes you've been able to wear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet in the Quran, He says, no, He addresses the wives of the Prophet. The wives of the Prophet were supposed to be role models. They were supposed to be teachers. The believing men were supposed to learn from them. They were supposed to learn the seerah of the Holy Prophet from them. So now Allah addresses them, Ya Nisa an-Nabi, O the wives of the Prophet. لَسْتُنَّ كَأَحَدٍ مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ. You are not like the other women. إِنِ اتَّقَيْتُنَّ فَلَا تَخْضَعْنَا بِالْقَوْلِ. If you have taqwa in your hearts, then don't soften your voice. Don't sweeten your voice. Don't make it attractive. Why? فَيَطْمَعَ الَّذِي فِي قَلْبِهِ مَرَضٌ. Because that man who has a disease in his heart is going to get tempted. And the Quran says some men are like that. That even if you wear your hijab, sometimes they're still tempted. It's so important for us not only to emphasize hijab, but also to emphasize how men should interact in the presence of women. Teaching men to be respectful towards women is also just as important in developing a culture of haya. Otherwise, we have heard and we have seen stories of women who are accosted and assaulted even in the haram, even around Baytullah. even around the haram of our imams. Okay? What does the Quran say? The Quran says that if you dress modestly, then people will appreciate you for who you are and not for your physical appearance. Now sometimes we say that our society is very different. That was the society during the time of the Prophet of Allah. They were barbaric people, they were uncivilized people, and so they reacted in that way. But we're a civilized society today. And that's where we're wrong. We're actually a hyper-sexualized society today. Right? There's a social psychologist by the name of Sarah Merman. Along with a group of researchers, she studied this particular phenomenon. And she wanted to study the hypersexualization of women over the last 25 years in mass media and how their images were being portrayed on magazines, in videos, on the television channels, in news as well. And they found, studying the last 25 years, that the use of women in a provocative manner in mass media had tripled, had become 3 times the amount. In a society like that, you want to wear hijab. You want to be appreciated for your intelligence, for your achievements, for your character, and not just for the way you're dressed. When you look at our societies today, a lady who has absolutely nothing to contribute that is meaningful to society, but if she's willing to flaunt her body, she can have 100 million followers on Instagram. If a lady has something that is useful to contribute to society, she is intelligent and smart, we don't even know about her. Let me give you an example. Now this example goes back a little bit in history. We go back to the 50s and the 60s. How many of you knew that there were black women that worked in NASA in the 50s and the 60s, and they were integral to the Apollo space mission that put astronauts like Neil Armstrong onto the moon? Their stories are phenomenal. Netflix made a movie about them. It's called Hidden Figures. Right? I strongly recommend you to go and watch it. They were called computers back then because it was their role to do what the computers do today. They were mathematical geniuses. They were engineering geniuses. They were the first programmers who programmed in Fortran at NASA. Do you know about them? You don't. Do you know why you don't know about them? 1, because they were black. 2, because they were women. And 3, because they work with their minds. They put effort. They struggled. And there was nothing to show physically over there. So number 3, Islam tells us to wear hijab because it empowers women, and she is appreciated for her character, for her dignity, for her achievements, and for her intelligence, and not just for her physical appearance. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I'll end with one more example, and then I'll tell you what we want to discuss tomorrow, inshallah. Catherine Bullock, I've shared this with some of you. She's a revert to Islam. She's a professor in Ontario at one of the universities there. She's written a book where she has collected the story of many Muslim women. Some of them born into Islam, some of them reverting to Islam. Some of them who wear hijab and some of them who don't wear hijab. One of the ladies who wears hijab and who is a revert into Islam, She says that I came to the Islamic position on hijab even before becoming a Muslim. She says I was an engineer working at a firm. And I noticed, even before I learned from Islam, that the day I dressed in a very liberal and very, in a manner that was not modest, the other engineers never respected me as an engineer. They could only see me as an object and a woman. The days I came in and I dressed modestly, even though I wasn't wearing the hijab and the headscarf, I found that they treated me like an engineer. They accorded me the respect of an engineer. Now, I'm not saying their thinking is right, but it is the reality in our societies. Now, when you look at Islam, it gives us so many reasons to be wearing the hijab. They're good reasons. Resistance against a culture of objectifying women, 1. 2, being appreciated for your achievements. 3, giving izzah and karama, honor and dignity. So then the question we ask is, why do we find it difficult to wear our hijab? Both men and women. Is there something wrong with Islam? Or is there something wrong with our societies? You find that there is something wrong with our societies. With Islamophobia, with hypersexualization, with peer pressure, right? And the point I'm trying to make over here is to say that rather than always saying we need to change ourselves to fit into society, I think it is time for us to say we need to change our societies to become more accepting. And we need to change our societies to become more respecting towards women and their dignity, inshallah. Now tonight we talked about haya in dressing. Tomorrow night, inshallah, we'd like to talk about haya in communication. What does haya look like on WhatsApp and Instagram and Facebook? That's our topic, inshallah, for tomorrow night. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Tonight we'd like to remember Ali al-Akbar, the young son of Imam al-Hussein, the young man. Inshallah, today, after the musibah and before the matam and the latmiya, they will be having a fundraiser. I request you to donate generously to this fundraiser to help these brothers and sisters who are working hard to spread the message of Imam al-Hussein and to spread it amongst the youth of the community. Your support helps them to run programs throughout the year to educate and to nurture our young brothers and sisters throughout the year. When you look at the family of Imam al-Hussein, they sacrificed everything. They sacrificed their lives, they sacrificed their children, they sacrificed their freedoms, they accepted imprisonment in order to further the cause of Islam and good values. Tonight, inshallah, I hope you'll find it in your heart to sacrifice a little bit of what you have earned and what you have to further good values. But for now, let us take our hearts to Karbala. And let us do tawassul to Aba Abdullah al-Husayn. Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Husayn ibn Ali, أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها time. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. When I want to see the Prophet, I look at you, my son Ali. For as long as you are alive, there is sweetness in this world for me. Then slow down, Ali, slow down, Ali. As they approached the day of Ashura, Aba Abdullah al-Hussein would see dreams that would foreshadow his imminent martyrdom. One night he was asleep, or one morning he had gone to sleep, and when he woke up, he told them, رَأَيْتُ السَّاعَةَ جَدِّي مُحَمَّدًا وَأَبِي عَلِيًّا. I just saw my grandfather, the Prophet of Allah. I saw Imam Ali, I saw Lady Fatima, I saw Imam Al-Hassan, and all of them were telling to me, Ya Hussein, إِنَّكَ رَائِحٌ إِلَيْنَا عَنْ قَرِيبٍ. Oh Hussein, soon you shall be coming to us, soon you shall be meeting us. It was one of those dreams that Aba Abdullah had seen. When he woke up from his dream, he said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. And the person to hear that dream was Ali al-Akbar, to hear that voice was Ali al-Akbar. So he came to his father and said, Ya abati, lima starja'ta wa hamidta Allah. Oh my dear father, why did you say Inna Lillah? And why did you praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And the Imam said to him, because I saw a dream, and the dream told me that death is approaching us. So Ali al-Akbar asks the Imam, he says, Ya abati, alasna ala al-haq? Are we not on the right path? Imam said to him, Bala walladhi ilayhi marja' al-ibad. Yes, I swear by Allah, to him the return of all servants is. We are on the right path. So Ali al-Akbar says to his father, إِذَا لَا نُبَالِي أَوَقَعْنَا عَلَى الْمَوْتِ أَوْ وَقَعَ الْمَوْتُ عَلَيْنَا. Then it doesn't matter whether we face death or death faces us. That was Ali al-Akbar. On the day of Ashura, the companions would not allow the family members to go before them. One by one the companions went to the field of battle. Habib ibn Madahir, Muslim ibn Awsa, Ja'a Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, Burayr. Everyone went to the battlefield. When they had passed away, the family members came to Aba Abdullah. The first one to come to Aba Abdullah was Ali al-Akbar. The narrator says, فَاسْتَأْذَنَا فَأَذِنَ لَهُ. He sought permission from Aba Abdullah. Look at his generosity. Look at the sacrifice of Aba Abdullah. Without a moment of hesitation, Aba Abdullah said to him, Go, my son, go to the battlefield. But then the narrator says, after Ali al-Akbar started to leave, ثم نظر إليه نظر آيس من. He looked at him with a look full of hopelessness. وأرخى عينه وبكى. And tears started to flow from his eyes. And he turned to Allah and he said, اللهم اشهد فقد برز إليهم غلام أشبه الناس برسول الله. Oh God, bear witness, a young man is going towards them who most resembles the Prophet of Allah, khulqan wa khalqan wa mantiqa, in his character, in his physique, in his speaking as well. Ali al-Akbar entered the field of battle, and he presented himself, and like every warrior he recited a Raj's poetry. Listen to the poetry of Ali al-Akbar. He says to them, if you don't know me, let me introduce myself to you. أنا علي بن الحسين بن علي نحن وبيت الله أولى بالنبي. I am Ali, the son of Hussein, the son of Ali. By the house of Allah, we're dearer to the Prophet of Allah. He fought bravely. He fought for a period of time. But then after a short while, he came back to his father. And he says to his father, Ya abati, al-atashu qad qatalani. My dear father, the thirst is killing me. وَثِقْلُ الْحَدِيدِ قَدْ أَجْحَدَنِي. And the weight of the iron is wearing me down. My dear brothers and sisters, imagine that this was the thirst of Ali al-Akbar. Anytime your children come to you and they are thirsty and they ask you for a little bit of water, as a mother, as a father, no matter what you're doing at that time, you will go and get some water and give it to your child. That is the least you can do for your child. Imagine Al-Hussein on the day of Ashura. Ali al-Akbar is coming to him and says, my dear father, I'm just looking for a little bit of water. Imagine the time when Sukaina came to Aba Abdillah and she wanted a little bit of water. Imam al-Hussein turned to Ali al-Akbar, and the only thing he could say to his son was, Qatil qalila, go back my dear son, fight for a short while, soon you shall be with your grandfather, he will quench you from the pool of Kawthar. So Ali al-Akbar goes back to the battlefield, a thirsty man, a tired person. He fights bravely, but Murra ibn Munqadh al-Azadi, he says, I will make his mother mourn for him. And before Ali al-Akbar can turn around, he's got a spear aimed at the heart of Ali al-Akbar. When he unleashes it, he hits him on his chest. He falls to the plains of Karbala. He calls out to Aba Abdillah, Ya abati, alayka minni salam. Oh my dear father, may my salams be upon you. هذا جدي يقرئك السلام. I can see my grandfather is giving his salams to you, and he's saying, Oh Hussein, عجل القدوم إلينا. Now hasten your steps towards us. We're waiting for you. Imam al-Hussein comes to the body of his son, and he looks at Ali al-Akbar, who's breathing the last of his life. He puts his cheeks on the cheeks of Ali al-Akbar, and he says to him, Bunayya ala ad-dunya ba'daka al-afa. My dear son, what is there in this world after you? Imam al-Hussein takes the body of Ali al-Akbar. He brings it back to the tents. He brings it to the lady. The narrator says, it was that time I saw the daughter of Ali, Zainab al-Kabra, running out of her tent. She was running to Ali al-Akbar, and she was calling out to him, Wa Habiba, Ya bana akha, oh my beloved, oh son of my brother, who has done this? وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه